4 or 5 right now.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll turn that, yeah, that's a fact.
You wouldn't mind.
No, not at all.
Minolta? Tell you what, I'll give you a gossip.
Hello.
Is that all right? Can you hear me?
Not careful, I'm gonna rush you back. The gym on there?
Hey, Jim, if you can hear, get the tape on.
Yes, you can, certainly can. Hey, David, how you doing? Good to see you.
Start, I'll make a short statement. I just finished talking to Father Gregory, and he's running late coming out of Milwaukee. I'm going to try to get him up earlier before we start tonight. If so, I'll put on the wire and let you know what time he'll get in and see what time he can get in. This is Ralph Shuneman. This is my wife, Lillian. Can we test everybody and make sure we...
Everybody wants to know.
Let me give a short statement first, and then we'll go. Okay, can we? Okay, as we know, we're having a Peace and Freedom rally tonight at 841 South Wabash at the Carter Temple, featuring myself, Father Gregory from Milwaukee, and Ralph Shuneman, who's Virgin Russell's secretary. This is Mr. Shuneman here, because there are so many various religions that for the first time in a year get together to celebrate this week of Christmas through New Year's the world over, the Muslims, the Jews, the Baptists, the Methodists, the Muslims, to the extent that I've extended it now to the 3rd of January when I break mine.
Has any plans been made?
It's very difficult to say. You hear King, while he's committed to Washington, D.C., to come in and take care of this unfinished business here. We went into the South on every one of King's endeavors with our lives and leave till the business was over and the job was done. And he had an injunction hanging over his head here. They played games with the whole freedom movement here. Again, I say Bill Berry is probably the only man in this town with the wisdom and the connections to see to it that there's no violence. If the white power structure and the silly black folks that's romancing the power structure, let this man alone and let him go out and do an honest, sincere job. But I intend to bring in the black college students. I've talked with them on the West Coast. And I told them I will help them organize the Olympic boycott if they help me bust this town. And I intend to bring in the white kids from San Francisco. And I intend to start demonstrations a month before the Democratic Convention is supposed to open in this town.
Do you expect any violence during the convention?
Do I expect any violence during the convention? I don't know. You have violence during a Shriners convention. I don't know why you wouldn't have violence during a Democrat or Republican convention.
I wasn't talking about the delegates.
What were you talking about?
I was talking about those who might be demonstrating. Do you think it might get out of hand?
It's very hard to say. I don't know how many groups are going to be here.
What would militate against demonstrations, massive demonstrations at the convention? Are you saying fair housing legislation here, or just what?
I'm saying a stiff fair housing legislation, a right that people can walk anywhere.
Convention, unless you can get these demands that you've made.
If it comes to that, plus a couple of more I'm going to throw in.
And you want to talk about those?
Well, I think we talk about the police and we're making a wolf out of the police here, and I think that the police should be the highest paid police department in the country, since we say that it is the police department that's keeping the riots down. And since the police don't seem to have the wisdom or the know-how to do anything but stop riots and not get a raise, then maybe we ought to throw their demand in. We will decide that tonight sometime, if that's going to be one of the demands, to see to it that they be the highest paid police department in the country.
Would this have the effect of putting them on your side?
I know we're not worried about no policemen being on. The police is more nigger in this country than we are, man. They the ones that overworked and underfed. They in the same position my mama was in 30 years ago and couldn't complain, you know.
Dick, how many organizations do you have behind you in this?
No demonstrations, or will that depend on what's happening in Vietnam?
I'm not saying that we can stop all demonstrations. I'm just talking about the ones that I can be in direct control of myself, and the people that I will be able to influence, and the people I'll be able to bring in. I don't know. The Republicans might be sending somebody in here to do some things. What's going to stop that, you know?
Well, when you say over my dead body, does this mean that you and those who support you are going to line up in front of the entrances to the convention hall and try to prevent delegates from entering, or just how are you going to stop the convention?
It could mean that. We'll work out tactics to find out ways.
Mrs. Gregory, how did you happen to join your husband on his fast?
Well, I just decided to join him because it's such a great cause.
What was your reaction of,
Well, it's very difficult to say. I don't think the church, and I don't think you can single out, I think the church has made a strong enough stand against war, period. I think the influence that the Pope have on a worldwide level and respected by all religions, I think if there was a concerted effort in the Vatican, I think we could bring about peace or embarrass this country to the extent that it would make us either take it to the UN or something of that nature. It's very hard to say. You know that only a small amount of what they talked about came. It's very difficult to say. I'd hate to pass an opinion on it until you really wait and see. It sounds good on the surface.
What kind of...
Well, that's a strange question coming from you newsmen, because y'all know how many rides y'all covered up this past summer.
well, what do you think? What's your estimate of the situation?
I think there's a chance that it could not be one if everybody concerned sit down and worked. You know, the fact that we can meet with Kosygin, the fact that we can sit at the UN, the fact we can go all over the world talking to people that's supposed to be our enemies, but the people that run this town haven't got together with the black folks that can decide if it's going to be a riot or not. And I say that very vaguely because there's not too many people that can decide, but there's a lot of black folks in a position that can go out and just a conversation. And I think we got to admit one day that the police department can't stop revolt. 5 disciplined cops can stop a riot, but Hitler's army couldn't put down protests. And I think we have the type of people in this town that can stop violence. I'm not going out and telling nobody not to throw a brick unless the city give me a reason not to throw a brick. And if they think the Defender can keep having long hot summers, cooling off the long hot summers, and keep getting awards for it, when they know damn good and well how many riots, they had so many fires in this town one night that someone just couldn't count all of them. But if they think this is the way to do it, then maybe that's the reason. I don't. But I think that any town that's as hot as this town, you can stop it by going in, just solving the problems and find out what caused it. So I would say at this point of the year, if we start working now, the chances are strange drug would have been into had I stayed stationary. From what I understand, the fact that I've traveled so much and been in contact with so many people.
You're thinking lucidly at all times. I don't mean to cast any aspersions or anything like that, but...
Yeah. I think the same as anything, I think clearer now than I did before.
What is Mr. Schoenman's, am I pronouncing it right?
Yes,
What is tonight's rally and so forth?
Well, of course, as Secretary General of the War Crimes Tribunal, which has been examining American war crimes in Vietnam, I'm very concerned about the war in Vietnam and the struggle in this country against that war. And also, in particular, the connection between the struggle against that war and the struggle for black liberation in this country. So those two things are the basis of my interest. And of course, for all this struggle, what Dick Gregory is doing is way out in front. He's acting and speaking and fighting for all of us. So we're concerned to support him.
You've been called Bertrand Russell's younger Svengali.
So if it's managed, it must be by telepathy. The second thing I would point out to you is that Russell is constantly before television cameras, lists, in public situations, and I should have thought, with all the attacks that he receives for what he says, he should at least be credited with holding his own.
How many Negroes are there in Mr. Russell's organization in London?
Well, now, the War Crimes Tribunal,
No, not the tribunal, I mean in his organization.
well, I don't quite know what you mean, the Russell Foundation? Well, I wouldn't, how many blacks are working with us? What about it?
Is it going to stay as is, status quo?
Well, I have as much right to my country as those who debase it. I don't imagine to know why you should think that my citizenship is in question.
Do you find it in question?
Hardly.
You're going to stay as an American citizen then?
Yes, I shall indeed.
Good luck.
I have a good holiday. New Year.
When you started?
158 Thanksgiving Day. How's it going?
Your symptoms sounded like LSD to me.
I didn't hear you too clear. You did have some kind of, you said,
It's really amazing.
I tell you, you don't really have illusions, but you're so clear that it seems like, like I heard people talking on out the house and found out there were people talking 10 floors down outside. I would have thought it was an
so it's
illusion.
a sharpening of everything.
Yeah. One day I had to get out of an automobile because at that point my senses got so keen. I could hear the treads on the tire actually hitting the highway.
The same thing.
What is this?
Just work clothes that I
Huh?
was.
Yeah, where did you buy it? That's what I like. The work.
Sears and Roebuck.
Sears got something like that?
$6.
That's what I do. They're good. They're good
How
for
much did you
working.
say you weighed? I'm thinking 158?
158, yeah.
Cover all.
So altogether, you lost,
Don't count them. I don't count
Don't
mine.
count.
that's not supposed to, okay.
Count them. I just wait.
Yeah, great blow.
I have not yet subtracted it. Find out.
Purple. You call lavender?
That's lavender velour.
I'm from WBBM, and we were short
That's
on
two
energy.
pieces there. What's
So I
that?
couldn't take it. Do you think I could have
Where are you from, I was born in New York City. Have a little short deal with
Pieces that I developed a long time ago. Born in New York, raised in New York, California.
How long have you been? What were you before? Were you a student? I see, what were you?
More technical equipment.
You know, that kind of thing, be a cruise, you know? Pow, the whole campaign falls around. Oh, he doesn't have a letter? Oh, he's not there. When he comes, it's
No, they'll be available at the end. This is, the only one here.
What'd you have right after midnight?
You can look at it.
I'll have some. I got some coming. No, I'll just finish mimeographing them out. Before we start, let me test you. Say Happy New Year. And I have copies of this letter that'll be here by the time we finish up, so you can each have a little copy. I finished mine Sunday night, and well, if there's any questions, we can get into it. But I have to take juice for 6 days, and it starts off with 2 ounces every hour. So at 12 midnight Sunday night, I did not go to sleep because I stood up and took my 2 ounces every hour for 12 hours. Man.
2 ounces of what, Dick?
2 ounces of vegetable juice, cooked vegetable juice. I'm up to 4 ounces now.
every hour.
Every hour. And then tomorrow, I can go into fruit juices.
When do you sleep, Dick?
I don't really. I found out with a fast that it's less requirement of sleep, more requirement of rest, because your back begins to hurt when you get overtired.
Have you had a physical? Since,
No,
Sunday?
I'm going to. I've had one physical only for research reasons, and now I'm going back to the same place to get one now to see the difference. And
How much you weigh today?
I'm up now to, I went to 103, I'm at 108 today.
You had 108 pounds today?
108, yeah.
At the end of your fast, I thought you were around 104.
It jumped between 103 and 104. It would all depend on how much water I would take,
Since
yeah.
the day before yesterday,
Right.
you gained 4 pounds?
Right, uh-huh.
When will you have a steak?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, never. How's the level? Everybody okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give them the letter to the president, and then we'll throw it open to questions and answers.
Anytime you're ready.
Okay, the letter that I sent to Lyndon Baines Johnson concerning the Democratic Convention reads in part, the selection of Chicago as the site for the Democratic National Convention in 1968 is a cruel insult to the millions of deprived citizens, black and white. As a citizen of Chicago and as a Negro, I urge you to reconsider this decision to reward a city whose record on civil rights is among the worst in this country. There are towns in Alabama who have sincerely tried harder to solve their racial problems and should deserve such a reward over Chicago. Commissioner, to the police commissioner, and to Mayor Daley, I will personally hand carry the mayor the list of demands today at 2 o'clock by City Hall, and also carry Lerone Bennett's book, Before the Mayflower, which is a book of Negro accomplishments. And I feel that if this mayor we have here in this city can understand that Negroes have made accomplishments as well as Irish and Jews and Italians, that maybe he'll stop giving us this animal-like treatment. The explosion he had in the city council the other day because of the Negro criminal element, and then come right back and make the statement that out of the tremendous amount of police we have here, there's always going to be some crooks found, referring to the Ku Klux Klanners. Well, if he can say Ku Klux Klan cops, how come he can't say this about the criminal element of the Negroes? But this is what we're tired of, this racist attitude in this town. The fact that 200,000 rounds of ammunition can be found in a white man's house along with hand grenades, and then we pick up the paper and read where no law was violated, and we know damn good and well if a nigger walked down the street with one of those old hand grenades that's been made into a cigarette lighter, we might end up in jail. And we're just sick and tired of it, and the animal-like way the city council acted the other day, we don't see them screaming and hollering over the fact that the Ku Klux Klan have been found among the police department. And I'm personally tired of the way the city council have used my name, because personally I feel honor in my one little toll than 90% of the people in the city council. Chicago is a hoodlum syndicate town because we have hoodlum syndicate corrupt politicians. And the day the politicians straighten up might be the day the citizens straighten up. But you're not going to run a town where the judges get out of bed in the middle of the night and take money, where the police department is steal a car parked and get it snatched off the street without reading, where they even stole some parts off of it, and then expect the citizens to behave themselves 100%. But my answer to the city council's name, that they better be mighty careful on how they use my name down there, because the next time I read or hear that they've used my name as loosely as they did last week, I'm going to personally put up $10,000 for any information leading to those aldermen's arrest or conviction. And honestly, I don't believe it's too many of them can hold up under that arrest and conviction for doing wrongdoing while being in office. And now we open it to question and answers.
You say over your dead body, the convention held, at the same time you say you're going to take to the streets to lead nonviolent demonstrations. What do you mean by over your dead body? You mean you're going to sacrifice yourself in some kind of a prolonged death fast, or are you going to seek somebody to kill you over your dead?
Just an expression. Just an expression.
It's not
You
literal.
mean it literally, or?
No, it's just an expression that we will demonstrate 24 hours a day.
Who is we? Who have you contacted? If they don't come around on these 5 points that you've demanded, who will you get to help you?
The Black College Group, the Black Power College Group is being formed now, which we will set up a convention during the spring break and coordinate the kids coming in from all over the country, plus the white kids that's want to come in, plus the various civil rights groups across the country that I've gone in and helped. And I don't think it's one major city in America that I can get people to come in here that I've helped. Milwaukee's an example, that I've marched in Milwaukee. I don't have to worry about him telling me. He owes it to me. It's just a matter of calling. You must remember, I demonstrated in that town for 2 months, every day, for 20 and 30 miles a day. And I have no doubt that when I call on various people across the country to come in here and help me, I will get them.
How many demonstrators do you estimate that you can muster here?
I would say a minimum of 5,000. I couldn't say what the maximum would be, but I know 5,000 people that I can put my hands on that will come in. That's not counting the local people here in Chicago.
Has the mayor given you any indication that he will be at City Hall and will accept?
No, well, I'm sure some.
One of your demands is the number 2 appointment of a Negro to a high echelon in the police department. Except for the superintendent of police, who of course is a white man now. There's a deputy superintendent who is a Negro. His name is Samuel Nolan. How much higher can you go than that?
We don't want nobody in a buttered up, invented job. We're talking about along the running of the police department. Not just something that's been created for police community relations.
You have somebody in mind?
No.
What job do you have in mind?
The number 2 spot, I would say.
Well, there are a lot of deputy superintendents. What
Well, maybe you would need to bring in various minority groups into that slot if you're going to create a slot. But I think with the trying times, not only where there's a tremendous amount of distrust among minority groups, I think they should have a representative way upstairs looking out for their interests. I think maybe we'd have to swing on this trend for the next 15 years until we can get back to normal. But we must remember that every ride that's been tipped off in America in the years have happened with a ghetto brother and a policeman incident. Now, we don't want to get into who was right or who was wrong. The pattern is it's been a police and a Negro in the ghetto. That the mayor was legitimately talking about 5,000 more policemen if needed to deal with crime in the street. He was not talking about 5,000 more policemen for the convention, but it came off nationally like he was saying that he would bring in 5,000 police because he never changed breath before he addressed himself to me. And it made a lot of people really think that it's going to take 5,000 police to have a convention here, more police. And I'm sure there's a lot of Democratic delegates that don't want to come themselves, that will be putting a lot of pressure down on the White House, saying out of all the towns we can go to and have some peace, why go there?
You don't think you're just making the mayor mad?
Oh, I imagine he gets mad over various things. I hope the syndicate can make him mad one day and he can come out as strong against them as he did against me.
Racial or civil rights. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it speaks for itself. I think you newsmen know it better than anybody else. You know how many flare-ups of riots we had here last summer. And the mayor keeps talking about one of his greatest accomplishments. 67 was a cool summer. You know damn good well it wasn't true. Hell, they had some nights, they had so many fires here you couldn't count them in an hour's time. Good job of suppressing them, which is, if he feels that this is the best way to do it, then good. I don't, because I feel one day rumors going to get out, and rumors going to keep on getting out, and I think that one day the government and everybody involved is going to have guts enough to stand up and tuck all their passionate dislikes away from the thank you, because the only thing I feel that have saved these summers have been the immediacy of the press. Now, I know, because I've been in riot areas, when the rumor goes out that so-and-so was shot and killed, and she was pregnant, and she was 19 years old, and I've been there when the press would run and find that girl and put her on television, and she's saying, no, I wasn't shot, and I haven't been killed, and I'm not pregnant. And I think one day, when both sides stop being bitter at the press, we will sit and say thanks. Because if we ever solve the problem, it's going to be through what you all been doing on those rides, of covering them, the most fair coverage we've been getting. And I still see there's a lot of leeway when I'm here on the west side in Chicago and see 3 women dead in the gutter and see none of them get reported the next day on television. When I'm sitting there and I watch these people being killed by the police and sit and listen to a newsman say by sniper fire, it kind of bugs you a little bit. But above all of that, I would say that when the news is getting reported real quick in these towns, it will do more to stop riots. Now, in this silly way of thinking, we think it helps promote them. But there's a lot of black people that would like to burn something down, but when they see the cop running through the street shooting on television, they will stay in the house. Now, when you suppress this news and there's legitimate people coming out that don't know it's a rumble going on, you can get a whole town come into mass destruction. And I would say what went on the west side this past summer and what went on out in Morgan Park with the police being shot this past summer, this was not a cool summer in this town. And I think that we can work this winter, that we can sit down and come to grips with the problems. But we make the same mistake every time. We start giving awards for keeping the summer cool. Let's start in the wintertime. And let's sit down and find out what the legitimate gripes are among these people.
In terms of numbers of dollars, how much has your civil rights activity cost you in the last year or 2 years or whatever period you want to choose?
I really couldn't say with a tremendous credit system like we have in America. I'm about $200,000 in debt.
$200,000 in debt?
In debt, yeah.
Is it? What have you missed in terms of dollars and bookings and that kind of thing?
Oh, it's very difficult to say because I chose to come out of nightclubs myself. I just worked one nightclub that's out in New York because I really don't have that much time for it. But I would imagine that I could make close to $1 million a year if I had time to promote my records, my books, in nightclubs.
Is that what you were making before you entered full strength on civil rights activity?
No, it was $900,000 was the most I made, but I mean, between now and then, with the books that I have out, Nigger is probably one of the best sellers. Have a Happy New Year.
Same to you, Dick.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Father Debbie lately?
When was it?
Have you told him about this at all? He has Milwaukee Journal.